And now, the best 60-ish seconds of your week. This week, the legislature of Pennsylvania, my home state, and yes, where I'm a candidate for governor, voted on the Voting Rights Protection Act. It's now going to go to Governor Wolf, who's almost sure to veto it. But this gives the General Assembly an opportunity to take the component pieces and put them forth to clearly show what Governor Wolf in particular, and the Democrats by extension, are willing to do to make sure that election integrity is again the rule of the day in Pennsylvania. You know, we have to be able to trust the electoral process, because if we can't trust the electoral process, then there really aren't any winners. And common sense reforms to make sure that every vote that should be cast is allowed to be cast, and every vote that's properly cast is properly counted. In other words, making it easy to vote, but difficult, if not impossible, to cheat. One of those component pieces is voter identification, something that's been talked about for a long time. And Pennsylvania already has voter identification for first-time voters. But the legislature is now saying, why not have voter identification in subsequent elections as well? Think about planes, trains, and automobiles. You can't get on an airplane, on a train, or rent a car without photo identification. So why should you be able to go in and vote without the same thing? You have to have photo ID to do all sorts of things across society, and the legislature of Pennsylvania actually made it easier to get a form of identification that would allow you to vote, so that the argument that it's difficult for people to get, or that it's impossible for certain parts of the Commonwealth to get at voter identification, really goes away. The Senate this week did something very interesting as well. They put a constitutional amendment forward. The great thing about that is it will give the voters the opportunity to decide whether or not voter identification should be the law of the state. That's a good thing. Giving the people more power is ultimately good for all of us. And election integrity needs to be the rule of the day when it comes to voting. And speaking of integrity, or the lack thereof, Hunter Biden is back in the news. This time, he's an artist selling his paintings for upwards of $500,000, apparently. The problem is that these choice pieces of art are going to undisclosed recipients. Why is that a problem? Well, Hunter Biden has made an art form out of leveraging his heredity, i.e. the fact that he is the son of the President of the United States and former Vice President of the United States, into some pretty cushy deals, including corporate boards he had no place in serving on, and incredibly lucrative financial situations that never would have flowed his way. So folks are appropriately asking him to tell us who's buying these paintings, because all of this comes on the heels of a Senate report that said that Russian oligarchs were using art as a way of laundering dirty money. Think about that. Think about Hunter Biden and his $500,000 works of art. I've always been an Andrew Wyeth fan. He hails from right up the road from Hunter Biden. I wonder what he thinks about $500,000 paintings going to a guy with no training whatsoever, and what might not qualify as art in everybody's book, despite the fact that it's subjective. And in Washington, the Congress is taking a much closer look at the origins of the Wuhan flu. This is particularly important because the Chinese Communist Party has lied to us over and over again, has used their relationship with the World Health Organization to deny folks the facts. Thank goodness for people like Pennsylvania's Dr. John Joyce, one of the Doctors Caucus, that is asking the right questions, demanding accountability, and he's and his committee ultimately going to get answers for the American people, which we so richly deserve, because the nonsense that we've heard about the origins of the Wuhan flu is now falling to the side. Thankfully, the facts are coming forward, because ultimately the facts don't lie. And this week, the Supreme Court of the United States came out with another unanimous opinion. As rare as they are, we've had a couple recently on some very important, in fact, landmark cases. And this week came one having to do with student athletes, one that I think opens the door for a much better future for NCAA Division I athletes, particularly football and basketball players. the court said that student athletes have been denied their just compensation under the antitrust laws, basically saying that the NCAA had violated the antitrust rules. Justice Gorsuch wrote the opinion, but Justice Kavanaugh went even further, writing a concurring opinion in which he said that the NCAA's business model would be virtually illegal in almost any industry across the United States. So how this all shakes out, we'll have to see. But as a former college athlete myself, I can say I believe that it's a way better future for NCAA athletes than what they've had in the past. And thank goodness the court, in unanimous fashion, is doing the right thing. And for now, that is the best 60-ish seconds of your week.